Hey team, welcome to our debrief for our practice for Thursday, September 3rd. So first we're going to go over lure mark roundings, and then we're going to go over some weight placement and boat trim. I think this was our first lured start, so very crowded mark rounding. First thing you notice, nobody's talking to each other. And then the other thing is, a lot of boats aren't prepared to give enough room. So again, if you see that you have to give room to 6, 7 boats, well, then you need to be ready to give that much room. Don't just think about giving room to the boat that's just inside of you. You have to understand the big picture, and more importantly, start talking and thinking about your plan to get around the lure mark well before you've gotten to the lure mark. If you don't do that, it sneaks up on you, and then you're just winging it, and that really never works out. Like not a whole lot more for that one, but again, you need to be communicating with everybody around. I'm going to need room. You give me more room, and then if you are the person who needs to give room, you need to give enough room. Because if you are on the outside and you haven't given enough room, you have felt every boat inside of you, and that's a situation you want to try to avoid. This was our second lured start of the night, so another very crowded mark rounding. And as the mark comes into picture here, you'll see that there are many boats that are not given enough room. Another thing, I want you to kind of take a look at this picture here and get an idea of the boats that are diving inside to get room, to position themselves to have room. Not only are they inside, but if they need to jibe to come back at the mark, they're coming back on starboard tack. So even before the 2 bowling circle, they have right of way. So getting inside, leveraging yourself inside on the run is all sorts of good. Very few scenarios that don't work out. So let's see how this works out. You see the massive boats converging. Okay. And as the mark comes into the frame, you'll see there's no way that there's enough room for all these boats to get around, because your boat's on the outside. They're still kind of heading towards the mark. All these boats on the inside, probably 10, 15, maybe 17 boats on the inside. There's not enough room. So let's watch and see what happens.
14, 19, 11, 22, and 4. They all have room on you, Graham. Everyone has room on you.
Oh boy. C4 wasn't even able to get around the mark.
That's why we made that adjustment 100 yards ago.
He is correct.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Go back to the start line and wait for me there. All of you. That's terrible.
Okay. So now we are going to move on to... Oh, he's got the tractor beam on you! So this is Mason and Brendan duking it out for inside at the mark. I think Mason, in boat number 4, will end up getting the upper hand just because he's inside here. And this is a good example of why inside is so important. So right now, Brendan is sailing a bit faster than Mason, but it doesn't matter. Mason has inside overlap. Now watch, Mason does a nice job of getting around the mark, not taking too much room. Maybe a smidge too much, but... And then Brendan has a very nice wide and tight rounding right behind him. So even though Brendan's behind, he still has the opportunity to go where he wants, and has relatively clear air. Obviously, sailing through the lee of the boat sailing downwind isn't great, but they're both doing that. Everybody has to do that. Another thing with these lure mark roundings... Sammy! Use both hands to trim in the main around the lure mark. I was just going to say that. Using both your hands, the tiller hand and your free hand, will help you trim the main
just pegging the
properly.
Mark,
if you notice, the boats that are going around, trimming, and then heading up, they have a really hard time getting around the mark. Your sails are fighting against you, especially your jib sail. but you don't want to trim them in too tight
Crank the main, you crank the jib
before you
in,
get around.
and then you
As you're rounding the mark, you're slowly trimming in, and even the
close
jib comes in a
round,
little behind the main.
turn, okay?
Let's watch this lure mark rounding here. Whole lot of sudden tiller movement there. I think they just probably, I'm not sure what happened there, but just try to make it a little smoother if you can, just because the sudden tiller movements. So notice how Brendan let his boat heel over to leeward to help the boat turn up. That was very nice. But again, the sudden tiller movements, try to avoid those. They do slow your boat down. So smooth motions with the tiller. Think of the rudder as more of a brake than a steering device. Obviously, it does steer the boat, but it really does slow the boat down when you use it, especially when you use it excessively.
Go around the mark. Nobody has room on you. Go around the mark, dude.
So that was a good example there. Make sure you understand where you are on the race course. Understand that you need to go around the mark. Don't sail any extra distance. So not only are you sailing extra distance, but you're giving the boats behind you the opportunity to possibly leverage themselves inside of you. So you've not only given up space, but you've given up your strategic advantage as well. So make sure when you have the opportunity, like Brady did there, that you want to use a tactical rounding, come in a little wide, and exit very tight. Lots of speed in that rounding, and you really shut the door on anybody that wants to try to get inside of you.
Big roll, big roll. Now take that.
All right, I think this will probably be our last lure mark rounding that we're going to break down. Don't remember offhand exactly where the lure mark is going to come into the frame, but it looks to me, by my eye, that we have a little more, our boats on the outside are prepared to give a little more room. The one criticism I have of the group here is not many people are working hard to get inside, maybe jibing and jibing onto port.
You should hear people
working
talking.
Inside, and there's no communication going back and forth. Nobody is talking about, I'm going to have room, no you don't, what have you. You need to communicate well before you get to the 3-boat length circle. Once you get to the 3-boat length circle, it's really too late. It's already happening, and if you don't have enough room, yes, you were fouled, but it doesn't help you. You still had a terrible rounding, right?
Do not take more room than you need.
I think there's a couple boats that I want to highlight here. Actually, one thing I will say that we did a great job here was actually avoiding contact, avoiding the bumper boats. This is a very crowded mark rounding. You don't hear any boats rubbing. So nice job there. I think we could have been a lot more aggressive on people working to get inside, right? Especially in practice, there's no reason not to be as aggressive as possible. Worst case scenario, you haven't won the practice race, and that's okay. Alright, so I'm actually going to pick on Caden here a little bit. See how far back he's sitting in the boat. So the cleat, really in this kind of condition, should probably be behind him. His right leg, so left if you're looking at the screen, should be in front of the traveler bar. And that way, think of it as a seesaw. You don't want the boat to hobby horse in the water. So same thing here with Ella and Bella. There's so much space in between them. And again, think of it like a seesaw. You don't want to seesaw up and down. But the more space that you have in between you, the more effective of a seesaw it is. We don't get very big waves at Hoover, but if there's any waves at all, it's problematic. And especially if we get to sail on Lake Erie, it's big time no bueno. I want you to watch Brendan and Sam here. Look how little space and actually no space in between them. Brendan only scoots back when Sam needs to come up on the rail, and then still they're shoulder to shoulder. No hobby horsing can happen. The boat is not an effective seesaw. nice trim there. A nice boat trim, I should say. All right, following them again, Brendan and Sam have really good teamwork, really good boat work. Now, watch Sam looking around, looking for puffs, looking at boats, looking for the ley line. Brendan is just watching the jib. And you notice they are shoulder to shoulder the whole time, weight together. Nice roll tack and moderate breeze. Looks like, ooh, nicely done, Mason. Looks like Mason was able to cleanly cross the Munport. Nevertheless, both of these teams have great teamwork, great sail trim, great boat trim. Actually, although right now I will say there's a little bit of space between Mason and Molly. Mason should probably scoot forward a little bit here. That was a nice rounding by both parts, especially they kind of had to drive through my waves just as they were turning down, which isn't ideal. Notice they turn down. The jib goes wing on wing. Molly is standing up, looking back. I'm okay with the standing up part. If any criticism here of the boat trim on Mason and Molly, maybe both of them scoot forward just a smidge. You really don't need the big enough waves tonight where we really don't need to keep the bow out of the water. Put that knuckle in the water just a little bit more. If you look across at Brendan and Sam, see they're both scoot a little forward. Sam is almost to the mast, and Brendan is a little farther forward. Still not much space in between them, but farther forward in the boat. Yep, sorry about that one, Mason. I just gave you more waves.
Weight placement.
So look at all the space in between them. I'm not going to call people out by name, but it's very important. You should be shoulder to shoulder, weight together. It's hard to say, but I would say
Probably not.
And they hit the mark. So let's see here. See all the space in between? All the space in between. It's just not fast. We're sailboat racing. We're trying to go as fast as we possibly can. So when you have all that weight in between you, creating that seesaw, it's just not fast.
Negative.
And this is one of those things that we really need to work on immediately, because it's an easy thing. It's to sit here. Just sit farther forward.
Negative.
Sit in front of the cleat if there is a
Negative.
cleat. Put the traveler bar in between your feet. There are much more complex concepts that we're working on. Obviously take a little more time, but this is really just as simple as sitting where you need to sit. So kind of remind yourself when you tack, am I sitting where I need to sit? If not, okay, let's just remedy that real quick. And then we're going to sail the boat that much faster. You don't have the... how do I word this? You don't want to give away any extra space ever. So if you are sailing the boat slow enough that you're going to give up 5 boat lengths each leg, think about that. In a 3-leg race, you get up 15 boat lengths. How many boats can be in between you and your... that's the wrong way to word this. So think about how many boats might be in front of you in a 15 boat length span. It could be a lot, right? So those are boats that you would be in front of if we had just done this small little thing. Let's take a look at their trim downwind. So I like this. If anything, maybe scoot a little farther forward, both of them. That said, if he's not going to stand up, I do like this position. If you look, there's no space in between them fore and aft. When I sailed in college, I never had my crew stand up, but it seems to be effective, so I'm not going to say no, but this is how I would sail it. And I'm going to pick on Caden yet again. Look at all the space in between them. So Caden just needs to scoot farther forward. I think Savannah has good position in the boat. I think Caden just needs to scoot farther forward. Then you can be shoulder to shoulder. And that way we are not making the boat an effective seesaw. So big takeaways is for tonight's practice. Communicate. Getting down the lure mark. Set yourself up for a good lure mark rounding. And sit properly in the boat, especially fore and aft. It's very easy to do. Let's just make sure that we're positioning our weight properly in the boat. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Just a reminder, no practice on Monday, Labor Day. Have a great weekend.